this session, I'm going to take you through my top 10 hidden admin settings. These are just options that you need to switch on and enable in Microsoft 365 to avoid potential nightmares in the future. So stay tuned, you'll definitely learn something here. Empower users to securely reset Active Directory passwords and update cache credentials anytime, anywhere, while cutting IT service desk calls and ensuring robust security with MFA, trusted networks, and geo-blocking. So for my number one, I'm going to kick off here in Microsoft Entra, and with Entra, I'm simply going to come into my users here, and one of the features that we now have currently in public preview is the ability to download all your users. And this can be incredibly useful if you need to do an edit. So if you've got like 10,000 users and you want to change an attribute or something like that, you can now just initiate this bulk operation. And once you've done that, if you just click onto here, it takes you through to a learn.microsoft.com article, shows you exactly how it works. But again, I can click here, and here is my download, so I can simply click onto that, open that file, and you can now see that all of my details has now come through. Okay, and obviously I can now go in and I can now edit that, and again, super easy. I can make changes and I can import that back in again. So that's a really nice feature, and it's nice to see that in. For my number two, again, one of my favorite features is that in the past you couldn't edit multiple users here. You had to go and do it through PowerShell or something like that. Well, now no longer. Now I can simply select the users, so I'll select these 4 users, and we have this edit button up here, and you can edit the properties directly, add a manager, add a sponsor, add to a group, an admin unit, and so on. So I could say, hey, I want to add these users to a group, and essentially it says, okay, which group do you want? So I'm just going to scroll down. I've got a group here called Tromsø HQ. I'm in Norway this week. So I click on select, and there we go. I've now added all of those users into that group. So now when I go into Adele and I come into groups, now you can see that she's now a member of the group. How cool is that? Okay, for my number 3 top tip, again, here in Entra ID, I'm going to come down here, and something that amazes me how many people don't know is the expiration settings here. Did you know you can put in the name of a group here? This could be, for example, a support team or something like that. And I could say, okay, let's have, you can put in what we call a group expiry of 180 days. And you can specify for these specific groups. So I can add in additional groups. And what happens is in 6 months, if nobody is using this group, so within 30 days, nobody's using it, nobody's accessing it, this places that group into the recycle bin. However, if the group is still being used, it just resets it again. So in other words, it avoids you having thousands of these kind of skeleton groups where nobody's actually using them. That's a really useful feature. Up next, what's new in conditional access? First of all, just a few things that amazes me how many admins don't know about. So I've just created a very simple conditional access policy, basically for a group of users who are accessing all resources. We're just going to keep it nice and simple. Conditions, we've got user risk, sign-in risk for identity protection. One couple of things is I'm going to grant access and I require multi-factor authentication. The one thing that I want to tell you about is the session controls. Please get your session controls correct. Sign-in frequency, first of all. Now, this is basically forcing what we call periodic re-authentication. If you are in a bank, again, really important, you might want to say, hey, I want to re-authenticate every 4 hours. So get my users to re-authenticate every 4 hours or even every time. So if you are going to use periodic re-authentication, a great security feature. Don't have it on days or weeks or months or anything silly like that. Keep it short, keep it tight, because it's really useful. The persistent browser session, very dangerous. This means always persistent. In other words, this is the keep me signed in option. Be very careful with that, because obviously that's potentially 90 days. So when you authenticate and it says, do you want to keep me signed in? The default is 90 days. That's potentially 90 days of unfiltered access. So again, really keep that to a minimum. Okay, now you require token protection, very useful. This particular conditional access policy, I'm using all cloud apps. So you can see that this option is not working. This only works if it's, let's say, for example, the admin pages or the Microsoft 365 login portal. But that's very, very useful there. Okay, so again, I'm just going to go ahead. I'm creating that very simple conditional access policy. Just takes a moment just to come in. So just give that a little refresh. And we now have our Oslo conditional access policy here. Now, if I just click onto this and then delete it, and then go in there, yeah, I'm happy. I want to delete this. I don't need this anymore. And now you suddenly go, oh my goodness, I didn't actually mean to do that. Well, a new feature in Entra ID, we can now come into the deleted policies, which is currently in public preview. Here is my Oslo CA. I can just simply select this again, and it gives me the choice. Do you want to delete it permanently? No, I want to restore it. So again, change it to reporting only. It was anyway. So I'm just going to go ahead and restore this policy back. And as if by magic, this policy has now been restored, and it does just take a couple of minutes just to go through. And if I come back into my policies, sure enough, you can now see my Oslo CA has been restored. Now, to be fair, you could do this through PowerShell before, but it's really nice to see this in here now. So there you go. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the deleted policies, which is now currently in public preview. Okay, coming into Microsoft Purview for my number 5. Coming in here really amazes me, again, how many users don't know about this. One of the first things that a compliance person asks is, do we have any sensitive information in our environment? Well, you can find it really simply by coming either into information protection or data loss prevention policies. And we have this great tool here called Explorers, and this is the Data Explorer. And what this does, it does a complete scan of all of our data right throughout our tenant, and it tells me right away if we have sensitive information. Now, just bearing in mind that you do need to be either a global admin or a compliance or Purview administrator here. So right away, you can see that we have got some rather sensitive information here. So things like credit card numbers, if I click onto that, it then shows me where those credit card numbers are actually located. So they're in Microsoft Exchange, OneDrive, Teams, and it shows me what departments are actually using them and so on. So I can say, you know, I'm a little bit concerned about that. I'd like to know exactly where they are and who's using them. So I can click into, let's say, for example, Microsoft Exchange here, and it will then drill down and it will actually show me the actual mailboxes where those that sensitive information is. And of course, I can then double click into those mailboxes and it will actually list any items. So there's the email. I can select the email, and again, because I have the appropriate permissions, it will actually go ahead and give me a preview. This is an absolutely fantastic tool because it tells you exactly where that sensitive data is, and once you've discovered it, you can then protect it accordingly. So again, you can see I'm going in here, it shows me where it is, and you can see I've got some rather sensitive information in this email here. So again, I can see that it's Megan's account, so I could have a conversation with her, or I could then go off and label it or classify that label. But definitely check out the Data Explorer in Microsoft Purview, especially if you're using things like Copilot or ChatGPT. Again, you have to know that if you've got sensitive data in your environment, that's the first thing that you need to do before you can protect it. For my next feature, I'm going to talk about something called ownerless groups. What do I mean by that? Well, if I come into teams and groups and active teams and groups, I'm sure you know that when you create a group or a team, one of the things it asks you is, hey, do you want to have an owner for this group or this team? So again, when you go into membership, you will have an owner here, and the owner is generally somebody who's going to look after it. It might be a team manager or something like that. But what happens if you forget to put in an owner? I got to be honest, it's a bit of a nightmare. Not anymore. Now you can simply come into Microsoft 365, come into settings, organizational settings, and if you come down into Microsoft 365 groups, we have a feature called ownerless groups. And once you switch this on, you can simply go into the configuration policy and you can say, okay, specify who can receive ownership notifications. So all active members or only certain members, and block certain members. You can choose that, and the number of active members to notify, and how long do you want to notify them for. So again, you can go to a maximum of something like 7 weeks, and I can click next, and I'm saying this is coming from me, the administrator, and I'm saying, hey, there's no owners for this particular group. Would you like to take ownership and look after it? So you can see here that the $username or $user display name in here, you can see that this is what the email actually looks like. And then they can simply just click yes or no, whether they want to become an owner or not. So I think this is a fantastic feature. You can do this just for all groups or only specific groups, but it amazes me how many people don't know that. So there you go, ownerless groups in Microsoft 365. Okay, for my number 7, I'm going to come in here into Microsoft 365 Admin Center, and I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to come into, you've got billing and you've got support and so on. So in the billing area, you have got the capability to manage licenses. Now, most admins, when they create a user account, they typically add a license that way. But did you know that you can come in here into licensing and you can see all of your licensing? You can see exactly what subscriptions you've got. You can see how many licenses you have and how many you've used. So super simple to use. You can also receive any license requests from your users here. And you can also create an auto claim policy as well. So an auto claim policy can be really, really useful. So I can come in here and I can edit this auto claim policy, and I can say, hey, I'm going to allow my users to claim these particular apps or licenses, and you can assign that to a particular group. So whenever they become a member of a group, they automatically claim a particular license. That's really useful. So for the licenses, we can come, as I said, we can come into subscriptions here, and within there, you can see I've got a number of licenses here. Let's say just for the Intune suite here. So this is an extension of Intune. It gives you lots of additional features. So I can say, hey, how do I want to assign licenses? So I can assign licenses both to users, but also and to groups as well. So I can simply select the groups. I can say add the license, put in the name of the group. So again, which group is it going to be? So again, I could say Oslo support, and I'm going to click on assign licenses. So all the members of that particular group will now be licensed for the Microsoft Intune suite. Super simple. And this can save you so much time, guys. definitely check this out. This is such a cool feature, and that's my number 7. Okay, so for my number 8, we have to talk digital certificates. You can assign digital certificates in a number of ways in Microsoft 365. I can come into conditional access in 365, and you can see if I scroll down, you have the capability for VPN connectivity. You can add in a digital certificate here and make that certificate available for 1, 2, 3, 5 years, however you want to make it available. And this can then be deployed onto a user's device. And the idea is that, of course, if the user is using a VPN, when they connect to conditional access or Entra ID, the system knows that they are a genuine user. In addition to this, you can also deploy digital certificates to devices by using Intune. So for this, I'm going to go into Microsoft Intune here to deploy this certificates. First of all, you need to have the Intune Suite license, which I gotta say is actually a great feature, and you definitely do probably want to set this up. So for this, you simply go into the tenant administration, and in the tenant administration, we have Cloud PKI, or Public Key Infrastructure. I can simply go in and I can create that new certificate. So I'll call this, Oslo CA. I can say, yeah, next. And I can say, okay, what's my CA type? Is it a root? Or am I going to be responsible for issuing digital certificates? You can also choose your validity period. 25 years. Are you going to be using Microsoft 365 for 25 years? I don't know. Let's keep it simple. Let's make it 5 years. And you can also choose, what's the purpose of this? So for example, you might be choosing IPsec. So you might want a secure VPN tunnel, for example. You can also select other uses as well. So again, could be client authentication. You can do a number of these as well, things like time stamping. So again, you have the options there. The subject attributes, so the common name. So again, I'm just going to call this, let's say, Contoso. The organization is Contoso. I'm going to say the organizational unit might be, for example, sales. And the country, again, I'm going to just choose probably the United States. Let me just bring this in here. Yeah, there we go. So the United States of America. And I'm going to say which state or province. So again, I'm going to say Washington. And the locality, I could say SEA, Seattle, let's say. For the encryption, you can choose an encryption standard. Always choose the strongest, I would say. Now that we've done that, simply click Next. And then click on Create, and off we go. It now creates our IPsec certificate, and you can then deploy that to the various devices in Microsoft Intune. Now, just a quick mention about licensing, by the way. I did a session on this recently. Remember, with licensing, all your users don't need to have these really high-end licenses. So match the data to the license rather than the user. So it's quite happy to have a mixture of different licenses. So these high-end licenses, you might only, use 10% of these within your organization. So there we go. Cloud PKI in Microsoft 365 Intune. So for my number 9 must know can be found here in Entra ID. And if you scroll down, you'll find a section called ID Governance. And in ID Governance, we have the capability to do access reviews. This is such an important feature, guys. I cannot emphasize it enough. So an access review, how many times have you given access to resources or permissions or made somebody an administrator, and then, months or years down the line, you go, oh my goodness, they still have access to that. So performing an access review is absolutely critical with any modern organization. So this forms part of Microsoft's Identity Governance Suite. You can do an access review for teams and group memberships, also for access to applications. So for example, if I've got an application here, let's say called AFI Backup, I'm going to select that. And who do I want to monitor? Well, is it guest users or is it all users? Well, I'm going to do all users here. And it says who is going to be the reviewer. Is it a particular user or group? Is it going to users can review their own access? Or is it the managers of users? Well, for me, I'm going to do a specific reviewer. Okay, so I'm just putting in my user. I'm going to be the reviewer for this. And the other thing you can also it says, do you want to have users or groups? So again, this can be multiple if you want to. Is it going to be a multi-stage review? Or is it just a single stage? So again, you can set the number of stages if you want to. Again, that's a little bit OTT in my opinion. Then we can say, how long is the review going to take? So again, 6 days. How often is it going to take? So is it monthly, weekly, yearly, quarterly? I'm going to do this particular review semi-annually, and you can select the start date here. When do you want it to end? Either never, on a specific date, or at the end of a certain number of occurrences. So again, super useful. So next we've got the settings. So again, you can automate this. So basically auto apply the results, and those auto apply the results might say don't take any change, don't make any difference, remove access, approve access, or take the recommendations. So I'm going to say take the recommendations, and I'm going to say at the end, do I want to send a notification? So again, I can choose a particular group. It might be HR, it might be something like that. Again, I'm just using my own at the moment. So enable reviewer decisions, no sign in within 30 days. Absolutely. So if they're not using the resource, there's not really any reason why they should still need access. Justification required, email notifications. Again, you can put some additional notes in there. We also have a new feature. So this is, if you're using Copilot, there is a new agent, and this can be automate that. And I'm going to do a session on that in the not too distant future. Right, though, I can now give the review a name. So I'll just call it Oslo 1 because I'm in Oslo this week. I just say, yep, that's fine. Off it goes, and it now creates that review. So at that review time, I will be notified, and I can then go in and take action on that. So there you have it. Number 9, access reviews. Okay, and finally for my number 10, I'm coming back into the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. I'm coming into settings and I'm scrolling down. And this is definitely something that you want to fix right away before it goes horribly wrong for you. Come into pay-as-you-go services here. And these pay-as-you-go services, they can be a godsend, but they can also be a complete nightmare. So, for example, syntax, optical character recognition, document translation features, you can set up these billing options here. But on top of that, you've also got other features as well. So things like storage, apps, videos, documents, and you can go into each of these and set individual billing for each feature. So again, for e-signatures, we now have a new e-signature feature. So once you've gone beyond, let's say, public preview, and you want to keep going with it, you can go in with billing. But just bearing in mind that if you don't have this set up, it could be a bit of a nasty shock for you. So there you go, pay-as-you-go billing in Microsoft 365 in no particular order. Definitely something an admin should know. So there you have it. I hope you learned something there. My top 10 tips and tricks for Microsoft 365, Entra ID, and everything in between. Hey, listen, any questions and comments, as always, get those down below. I answer them all. And if you'd like to subscribe, bump that button up there, ring that bell, and come and join my learning community. That's it for this week. I really appreciate you joining me. I'll catch you next time. You stay safe. I'll see you soon.